To what extent do you think a composer's political convictions or personal behavior should influence our attitude towards the music?
Well, I don't know really. The only person that comes to mind is Wagner, because of the obvious connection. Let's face it, some of the composers, anti-Semitism used to be very fashionable. And composers who were not necessarily associated with anti-Semitism were just a little bit anti-Semitic, which comes under the same heading as just a little bit pregnant. And so, obviously, if you start to try and analyze every composer's crossing the T's and dotting the I's as far as what their political beliefs were, you probably, if you wanted to make a statement as a Jew, not play a lot more than just Wagner or Strauss, which I'm not sure about where the story goes from, but right now Strauss, I think, is played in Israel, just now beginning to. And so far, Wagner is really sort of number one on the list, I suppose, of somebody who showed great enthusiasm towards the subject. If you play a phrase of a Brahms sonata, or a phrase of a chamber work by Brahms, and if you play it beautifully, does that mean that you love the German culture? Or does it mean that you have some sort of affinity with the music? Does it mean that you have affinity with German music or European music or whatever it is? I mean, I don't know. Do I enjoy playing Brahms, for example? Yeah, I love playing Brahms. Do I enjoy playing Bach? Yes. Do I enjoy all the German composers? I mean, when you talk about Brahms and Bach and Beethoven and Mozart and Haydn and so on, yes. Is it because I'm Jewish that I enjoy them? I don't think so. Do I play them pretty well? Do I play them with the right amount of feeling? Do I know how to turn a phrase? Yes, according to some. No, according to others. Am I playing it do I play Mozart in a, quote, romantic way? Yes, according to some. No, according to others. It's a question of what I feel about it, what is my attitude about playing the violin, making music, and so on. It's very interesting with the Jewish question. I remember that we did a film about klezmer music, which is truly when you talk about Jewish soul and so on and so forth, it is into the klezmer music, which is basically, if you want a very simplistic definition of klezmer music, it's Jewish soul music. Now, we went to Poland, and we went to Krakow, because right now this type of Jewish soul music has become very, very popular in Germany and in Poland, two former great lovers of the Jews. And as a matter of fact, it was very interesting because we were staying in the Jewish quarter. We were filming in a restaurant in the Jewish quarter in Krakow. And the restaurant was quite interesting because you went in there and it was like my mother's kitchen. All the cooking, all the smells, all the dishes, everything was there, done by non-Jews. It was like one of those Twilight Zone things where people made you feel at home, but it was a total illusion. Very interesting. That what's going on there. So it's now very, it's almost popular again to be Jewish. That's right. But not always.
Did you do that with Feidman?
No, I didn't do it with him. We did it with 4 separate groups, and then afterwards, as a result, we started to play a lot of. We went on tour with the klezmer music, and it was fantastic. And what I loved it that we were playing in places which were very, very proper places. For example, such as Tanglewood, and we actually did a klezmer concert in the shed in Tanglewood, and the people were dancing, and it was wonderful. It was great. But if you ask me how come Jews play klezmer, that I could answer. But how come they play something else? I don't know.
So this was at the Juilliard School, and this must have been either 1960 or 1961. That year that I was 17 and that was my first year, sat down in orchestra, and I see this piece with some sort of German title, and it said in the corner, Wagner. Now, Wagner was the mayor of the city of New York, Robert Wagner, and this said R. Wagner. I thought, well, isn't that interesting? This guy must have written a piece. And I don't know, the conductor came in and we started. And the most glorious music I had ever heard came out of our orchestra, sounds I had never heard before, because I had never heard anything by Wagner. So at the end of the day, I went home and I was sitting at the dinner table with my parents. And I said to my father, we're playing this incredible piece by this guy Wagner. He said, what piece is that? I said, well, I don't know. It's something in German. Nobody said the name of the piece. He said to me, that's Wagner. And of course, I had never heard Wagner before, because Wagner wasn't permitted in my house. I had heard about Wagner all my life, but to me, Wagner was a word that began with the letter V. It never occurred to me that it was one and the same. So I don't know how good a story that is, actually, but it speaks a lot, actually, too.
You said that you'd heard about Wagner all your life, but Wagner wasn't mentioned in your home.
Well, that's actually very interesting. I had heard about Wagner all of my life from my father, who raved about Wagner as being one of the great musical geniuses that ever lived. How did my father know that? He came from an extremely cultured house, and my grandfather, who was a rabbi, and the rabbi for the surrounding area, kind of hundreds of miles, was very cultured, and of course, they listened to opera, and of course, they listened to Wagner. So when my father was growing up, he learned the operas, and he was completely at home with Wagner. They didn't know about Wagner. They had no idea that he was a great anti-Semite, one of the greats. So they enjoyed themselves with this music. And then one day my grandfather came into the house and announced that there would be no longer any Wagner in the house, that it was prohibited. He explained who this man really was, that he had found this out, and therefore there would be no more Wagner. So, in my house as a child, where we listened to music constantly in silence, talking was not allowed when music was being played, there was never any Wagner. There was discussion about Wagner, but I never heard any. So that's the whole story.
Do you remember exactly what your father said when you came and announced that you discovered this wonderful music?
Well, I think he was very excited for me. I was very excited, and he said, oh, yes, it is. He was so fantastic. He heard in a way that no one had ever heard before. He had such a vision, and he had such facility as a composer. I mean, this guy was no stumblebum. That's exactly what my father would have said. He was no stumblebum. And I think he was thrilled for me, you know. He certainly wasn't angry at all, but we didn't play it at home, you know. I hear the greatness, but I respect my father. My father is dead, but his memory lives on in my heart and my mind 24 hours a day, after all. And I don't want to listen to that music. And a lot of my friends think it's very silly. But I don't think so. I think it's a rule. I think it's important. And I do believe that we have rules as Jews, and we have rules as human beings. They're not so different, the Jewish ones from the human being ones. Really, they're not, you know. And if we could all pay attention to that, the world would be a much better place, you know.